So first and foremost, I would like to thank the economists for organizing this event and the conference, and of course to thank my distinguished fellow colleagues on this panel. Madame Gauer, thank you very much for your participation, and by saying that, thank you on behalf of the whole European Commission for the assistance providing us in the last weeks and weeks ahead of us in the finalization of the document. Mr. Dijsselbloem, dear Jeroen, it's been a while. Very good to see you again. I'm glad to see you in a good shape. I heard both of your presentations, and it's not just a matter of my politeness, but I need to say that with predominant parts of your speeches and your presentations, I completely agree. And I will start by saying that, well, today is exactly 1 year since I had this privilege as, at that time, presidency of Council and as a finance minister to, I would say, initiate a video conference of the finance ministers of the EU member states when we reached an agreement of using the full flexibility of the Stability and Growth Pact, and thus giving to member states the opportunity to go further with providing fiscal incentives to their economies. And also by saying that, I would echo something that Jeroen just mentioned, comparison between this crisis, which is again unprecedented one, with the previous one. And I can say that both an European answer, and I can say from the angle of Croatia, Croatian answer was much better, and that we managed to act something that I would characterize as adequately in terms of the measures, but also timely. We saw, and I think we all have a very clear experience of the previous crisis, if you are in a way a bit late, then the repercussions and consequences are much more, let's say, negative. In case of Croatia, just for the sake of comparison, and I hope that, I'm sure, not only hope, that this is definitely one lesson learned, very important lesson that we learned. In case of Croatia in the previous crisis, we have been recording negative GDP growth for 6 consecutive years, and it took us additional almost 5 years to reach level of pre-recession level of GDP. By saying that, I would say that I'm glad that we as authority, as the government, had the possibility to act, as I said, and adequately and immediately at the very beginning of the crisis. What ensured us was the fact that in the years before the COVID pandemic, we, I would say, conducted very prudent fiscal and monetary policy, and as opposed in the previous crisis, we had a very adequate mix of these two. Primarily important in the first place was the fiscal policy, when we introduced the measures which were directly, let's say, linked and directed towards the private sector in order to gain and, I would say, secure jobs and employment. We recognized human lives and health as utmost important, I would say, goal and priority, but on the economic ground, equally important was and is protection of jobs and employment. By doing so, and by having that set of measures, now a year after, despite the fact that pandemic is still underway, that the challenges are still present, I can say that from the angle of our labor market indicators, from our budget indicators, we can say that we managed to succeed in this, I would say, arena. But at the same time, as I said, challenges remain, and we need to be careful and not to make some kind of, let's call it a last moment mistake or some kind of turnover in order to, let's say, break everything apart. I'm very glad that European response was very good. As Jeroen mentioned, SURE program, I'm also very glad to hear that, because Croatia was again leading a presidency when we have been, I would say, working under this program. Croatia as a member state already took 2 tranches of SURE program, and I would say in line with our original expectations, I would say exhausted the whole amount, but I'm glad to hear that there are remarks and there are some kind of suggestions that the program could also be prolonged. I think that it is a good one because it is linked towards exactly the same priority that I just described, and that is the security of jobs and employment. As regards the EU next generation, you heard Prime Minister Plenković, all the numbers, all the areas, all the priorities that he mentioned, and without any, I would say, need to repeat what he said, I would like just to follow up to his words that I'm personally, not only as a Vice Prime Minister and Minister of Finance, but as an economist, I am very glad that the whole composition of the package, particularly recovery and resilience facility, lies on two very important folds. On one hand, when we are talking about recovery, we are predominantly thinking about investments. Madam Gauer just very nicely mentioned, and I would say explained us that and private and public investments are more than welcome and needed, but adequate ones, efficient ones, the ones that will create and bring economic value in the future, in line, of course, with thresholds of green, digital, without significant harm and of these characteristics. But on the top of recovery and investments, I would specifically mention and stress the importance of resilience, and I would say slash reforms. This is something that is important for the individual member states, including Croatia, but of the whole European Union, because we all know that tomorrow will be again another kind of crisis. We don't have a crystal ball. We cannot predict when and in which specific area the crisis will hit us, but we need to be, let's say, prepared for this kind of event. And this crisis, I think, is again proving that it's not just a matter of how deep, strong, unprecedented crisis is, but it's also very matter how individual member states, European Union as a whole, is prepared and in what shape it comes and enters into this crisis. So weeks ahead of us, we will be working and finalizing the document. The document is important. We will be submitting it to the European Commission at the very end of April, as originally anticipated and promised. Government session 29th of April will be the one where we will be adopting the document. After that, valuation of Commission, European institutions, advanced 2021, but even more important out of all of these steps would be the implementation of the document and the absorption of the funds that are available. And this is something that we are very much focused. These funds are to be directed and used in a proper way for the adequate transformation of our economy and overall society to serve its purpose, recovery and resilience, and at the end of the day, to get us all out of the existing and current situation, with still, I would say, existing negative risk, predominantly coming from the not clear and not full visibility of COVID-19 performance going forward. However, with a very clear attitude and approach that and health and human lives are to be protected, and of course in the economic sector, jobs and overall economic activity. Final remark before pausing and letting, of course, Q&A session is something that both the Prime Minister and my distinguished colleagues on the panel also stressed. You know very well that Croatia, in the mid of last year, joined ERM, entered ERM2. Just a brief remark that a year before that, so it was a mid-2019, when Croatia submitted the letter of its intention to join ERM2, where we pre-committed ourselves on fulfillment of 19 measures in 6 different fields in order to, let's say, improve the business environment, overall public administration functioning, state assets performance, judiciary, etc. Once pandemic hit us, like the whole globe, many have been expecting that we will be delaying in terms of us delivering these measures. That was not the case. We even delivered the measures in advance. As a result of that, European institutions, and we respect that highly, and member states, let's say, positively responded to our initiative and our willingness to join ERM2, where we are currently and working very thoroughly despite pandemic and despite another event where which I need also to stress. And yesterday was actually the unfortunate anniversary of the earthquake that hit Zagreb exactly a year ago. 10 seconds of earthquake, it will take us 10 years of rebuilding and reconstruction of the downtown of Zagreb. Unfortunately, in the meantime, we had another earthquake not far away from Zagreb in one area, which is unfortunately also economically least developed. I'm mentioning and COVID and earthquake. However, very strong message from our side is that despite these challenges that we are facing, we stand ready, fully committed in fulfilling our criteria, both of Maastricht and both of post-entry into ERM, because we see merits of joining and adopting Euro much higher than potential costs. Merits and benefits are long-lasting as opposed to potential costs, which are predominantly one-off. And final remark regarding Jeroen, since we have also one Croatian saying, once finance minister, always finance minister, I would echo to his remark that, of course, today, full fiscal policy is supposed to be directed and put in the function of economic recovery, growth, job protection. But of course, we must not neglect the fact that eventually we will be again very much focused on the sustainability of public finances. Croatia treats our public debt growth in 2020 as a one-off effect after 5 consecutive years of the decline trend of the public debt in GDP, and we expect already this year to be back on track. That's why I would stress that it's our responsibility to, let's say, balance between sometimes challenging and conflicted interests. However, in the midterm, again, employment recovery is of our utmost importance. Thank you very much. And once again, sorry for the inconvenience, but now I think we are all ready to receive questions and comments. Thank you.